I'm politically homeless. I like Jill Stein. I actually asked her to come on this show and never got a response. Um, I, I, I like the ideas. I, I just, I don't feel like I have a politician or a party
Mhm.
that, and I have three things that I care about. Okay. And they've changed. In 2016, it was everybody should have health care. That was it. That was when, when Bernie said that, we started talking about Medicare for all. That was my thing. I think everybody should have health care. Okay. Now I'm like, well, that's important, but I'm also worried about censorship, right? I'm worried about people after COVID who had, fact based or experience based or whatever, anything against the narrative there, whether I agree with them or not, totally censored and shut down. And so now it's like, and what's happening with Julian Assange, now censorship is my number one thing. Because if we censor people, whether they're experts, quacks, Alex Jones, or anyone, right? Or Trump on social media, whatever it is, when we can't have the voices, it's only a matter of time before you lose yours. So that's my number one issue now. And then my other one is I think we have got to do something about all of the wars. Like we are not just in
Mhm.
our own wars, we're now funding other people's wars and we're just letting all of this stuff happen overseas. And it is, I know they used to say we got to fight them over there so we don't fight them over here. But at some point, we're going to have
Mhm.
like a war is going to come here. It just is. There's no way around it. So I don't have anybody that's talking about those three things in any of these parties or
I am
independents running
100%.
right now.
I've been consistent about this since 2016. I've been voting independent, voting third party. I too am politically homeless, and no, I'm not voting for Biden or either that. When the DNC convention comes here, what I think is going to happen at the DNC convention is I think they're going to replace Biden and have somebody else. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Which is in Chicago
and
for those
we will be
listeners who don't
covering it.
follow it very closely.
Um, as for the third party candidates, I really have to think about who's going to represent my values the most. And I am not as excited as I was for third parties in 2016 and all the other election cycles. I was. The reason why I'm
Yeah,
disappointed is because they've
me too.
had at least at the bare minimum since 2020 to really start building the infrastructure necessary to do a 50 state initiative. And the only third party that's been able to really get at least up to 48 states to be on the ballot have been the Libertarian Party. And I have my criticism of the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
RFK Jr. and Dr. Cornel West are both running as independents, but even then, running as an independent without official real infrastructure to do this, I mean, you should have started this since 2020 or use it at the beginning of 2023. And then with Jill
Yeah.
Stein and the Greens have, at least as it stands right now, 18 to 20 states for ballot access. At least that's the best of my memory right there. And so
Mm.
ballot access is key, fighting to get ballot access, fighting to ensure that people are able to vote for you. But when I look at the candidates, no one right now is representing me. I mean, I'll probably have to do an eeny, meeny, miny, mo when it comes down to third parties because no one is really plucking at my heartstrings.
I know. No one's, and now that there's Cornell's an independent, RFK's an independent, Jill's with the Green Party. I
Mhm.
don't know who's even running in the Libertarians anymore. But when I look at it, none of them are like, I'm going to galvanize the independents.
Mhm.
Maybe RFK, maybe, but I feel like he's too controversial and he's a little stubborn, I think, too. Like he's a little stubborn on some things, but I don't even know like who. At least before in 2016, I felt like Jill Stein, even though she didn't get much of the vote, she had like the progressives support, even if they didn't vote for her. So there was a bit of like
Mhm.
keeping us
Yeah,
together. I don't feel we have that
I've
now.
felt at this point when it comes down to the politicians, it's really hard to fill, or even at the third party candidates, it's really hard to fill in the shoes that Bernie left behind. Because if Bernie Sanders 2016, lightning in a bottle. Bernie Sanders 2020, it was a cheap imitation. No one else could do what Bernie was able to do in regards to pulling up a large political support from all across the political spectrum so that he could be acknowledged as a front runner candidate. No one else has had that moment. And I don't think we ever will see something like that again.
No. And that's why I don't think we're going to have a leader. That's why I'm like, the left is dead,
Mhm.
because we don't have a leader. We don't have anyone galvanizing us. And let me ask you this, and this is kind of one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and then we can wrap up here. But I the
Mhm.
political homeless thing, I feel homeless, you feel homeless. I think there's a lot of people that do. I even think a lot of people that are defending Biden or defending Trump are tribal.
Well,
They're
no,
not
no
really
one's no one's
feeling it
excited
the same
about
way.
two
But
old men
the
fighting over a
left,
cold bowl of soup. We got 2020 all over again. Trump versus Biden. Two old men
yep.
fighting over a cold bowl of soup, and that cold bowl of soup is America.
And that's why it feels like we're in some sort of weird simulation. The only thing that would be crazier
Yeah.
is if they replace him with Hillary, right? Like I was talking about with my friend as a crazy scenario. But so the left, right? I've talked to you for a couple years now. I've been a big supporter of independent media since 2016.
Yeah.
TYT, even though I don't even know what they're doing anymore. I can't even listen to that show. You, Jimmy Dore, Crew at Breaking Points, all these people,
Yeah.
but now everybody's divided in the left. So any chance of like all of these lefty media outlets or independent media outlets that are, giving a more fair assessment or attempting to give a more fair assessment, they're all fighting with each other. So that's what Force the Vote did to the left. It just had everybody kind of branch off, where I felt like Force the Vote, which for those of you who don't know, Force the Vote was an activist movement to force the Democrats, when they had control of the House in 2020, force a vote on Medicare for all, so that we could identify who actually supports it and would actually vote for it versus those who will not, and those who say they will, but then will not when the moment comes, so that you can do the activism to get candidates elected that would actually pass it. That was the point of Force the Vote. People had meltdowns
Mhm.
all over the spectrum, but really on the left over this. And it created this divide where instead of everybody coming together around this idea, this one thing that could have really changed the trajectory of our politics on healthcare, everybody got divided and fought with each other. So I feel like even if we had that candidate or that activist, the left would still be fighting over
Yeah,
it.
well,
So what's with the infighting?
I
You're
think
part of it. What's with the
there is
infighting?
okay. So what led to the infighting is I think there's a lot of people who still let the fear of Trump being elected get the better thought of their rational brain. I think with all the infighting in the left, you do also have a lot of Puritans. Okay, now what I mean by this is a lot of the SJWs, the social justice warriors, and the right wing has its own version of SJWs too. But
Mm.
among the left, each is saying, well, this issue is most important, or this issue is more important, or this thing or that thing. Overall, there isn't a bigger picture of what we must do to win. Everyone wants to have their own little victory or their own little green check mark saying that we did this and everyone else needs to fall in line behind it. And the problem that Bernie Sanders did is he left no blueprint of how we keep this movement going forward. It's like he ran in 2016 and ran in 2020, and there was no person to follow afterwards. There was nobody to sit upon the throne. And so, and well, yeah, yeah,
AOC.
yeah,
If you ask my lefty
yeah,
friends, they say it's AOC.
but
I'm like,
even then for
still? You
AOC,
still think
when
it's
she starts
AOC?
praising Mama Bear Nancy, or either that saying that Joe Biden has exceeded expectations, I can't help but wonder, well, then why are you in office? Weren't you supposed to challenge the Democrats? Weren't you supposed to? There's a lot of things in which the squad could have done, but they chose not to
Bring
do
the
it. So
ruckus.
why there's so much leftist infighting? It's because you have people who want to have minor victories over a greater objective goal. And people, I guess, on the left don't like being told what to do because the left is supposed to be rebellion. But I've seen a lot of progressives and quote unquote free thinkers saying, okay, well, I'll fall in line. I'll stay home locked down. I'll fall in line and trust the leader. I'll fall in line and vote Democrat again, even though they don't give me anything.
And that's why I tell my friends,
Mhm.
authoritarianism, it's coming from the left and you're cheering it on. And, oh, but it has to, if it's for the right thing or for the greater
There's good
good. And I'm like, yeah,
intentions,
well, the road
exactly.
to
So if you're going
hell
to
is paved
have,
with good
people
intentions.
cheering for censorship or people cheering for cancel culture or people cheering, yeah,
Not even
asking
cheering
for
it,
it or anything
asking
like
for it.
that,
They're
well,
asking
then
for it
if
now.
this was happening under Trump, people would be screaming from the rooftops. So I don't want to really hear about how people are afraid of Trump or what he can do when we're doing it to ourselves already.